activism needs to be about keeping these commandments. This is not what I expected out of them. The true Bible, the book of our fathers.
Right. The Most High has given us guidance on what we need to do.
Officer Eli.
Officer not showing.
Officer Ezekiel.
Shalom again, brothers and sisters. Welcome to another edition of the Bible, the Book of Our Fathers. The Book of Our Fathers. This is the show, the Bible, the Book of Our Fathers. We're doing part 2 of our series. Was actually about 2 weeks ago when we were in the closing of the Feast of Dedication, and we thought it was important for us to talk about trauma because it was related to what had actually happened to us during the time of the Maccabees, during the time when our temple was destroyed and we had to rededicate the temple after we had reclaimed it after the Greeks had decimated it. So the trauma that was associated in the destruction of the temple had caused us to be heavy-minded, caused us to be out of the spirit of being in unity. Our women was in heaviness. Our men was in heaviness. It just left a bad spirit on the nation of Israel, which is the purpose of trauma. And when your enemies inflict trauma upon you, that is the intended result of the affliction, is to cause a recurring of the trauma. It is to cause a repetition of the ugly memory of your sacred places being destroyed. So that's what trauma does. When trauma is inflicted upon us, it is inflicted upon us for us to have that everlasting, in their minds, that everlasting reminder of how destroyed we are so that we can never rise to get ourselves together. So that's the reason why we wanted to continue with this topic on trauma at the temple yesterday and today. And the reason why I named it that was because the trauma at the temple dealt with our time of the dedication. So that's the reason why I wanted to talk about that. The literal temple was destroyed, okay? And that had an effect on how we were to carry ourselves beyond that, okay? So that was dealing with yesterday. And that's the reason why I wanted to get it in during the season, if you will, of the Feast of Dedication. I wanted to get the first part in then. So now we're beyond the actual High Holy Day and the season. Now we're talking about the trauma as it relates to today, okay? So that's what I want to talk about now. So the first thing I want to do is get the scripture. I want to get the scripture, 1 Corinthians chapter 3:16. And before you read it, I just want to say this here. And, of course, I'm going to introduce my panel, but I just want to set these things up. The temple today is us, okay? The temple back then was our actual physical temple, although we were still the temple of the Most High, the Israelites, but it was our physical temple that was destroyed. Today, we don't have a temple. Today, it is our minds that's been sought after to traumatize by our enemies. Our enemies have sought to traumatize our mental temple, our spiritual temple, meaning us in our minds. As a man thinketh, so is he. So that's what their objective was. I'm Deacon Asaph, and to my right is...
Shalom, Israel, Most High Christ bless, Captain Sariah.
Shalom, Israel, Most High Christ bless, Officer Ezekiel.
Shalom, Most High Christ bless, Officer Eliakim.
Okay, all praises to the Most High. Now, while we're at it, Captain Sariah, can we let's deal with this disclaimer that we have to deal with, which it's the sign of the times. We have to deal with it. Go ahead.
Sir. Yes, sir. Israel united in Christ. Y'all, excuse me. Israel united in Christ. We are not a hate group. We are not affiliated with any other Israelite group. Israel United in Christ is a non-violent Bible-based movement. We do not advocate or condone any acts of violence against any race, ethnicity, or gender. We advise if anyone hears or knows of any plots to cause harm to anyone or to break the laws of the land, you must contact the proper authorities to bring awareness to any possible threat, as stated in Leviticus 5:1, King James Version.
All praise to the Most High. So we got that out of the way because that is our disclaimer. We have to do that because, again, we always have people that are enemies that are trying to continue to sully us as a hate group, as an unrighteous group, as some violent black extremist group, and all that other stuff. That is not us. Okay, we are men of the Bible. Our objective and our job is to make the Bible real to our people. That's what we are about. We are a spiritual group. We are the Israelites that the Bible speaks of. So again, I just want to reiterate the title, and we're going to move on with the lesson. Trauma at the temple, meaning the old temple. But now the temple today is us, our minds. And we're going to read that scripture. So trauma at the temple yesterday and also today, the trauma today. And the trauma that is affecting us is what's been happening to us over the years, over the centuries. And now these traumas have weighed themselves on our minds, and it's affecting our action. So we want to talk about how these traumas, how they affect us, but more importantly, how do we get over the trauma? And then we want to give you the solutions on what we must do to get over the trauma so that we can inherit the kingdom that is set for us, okay? Officer Eliakim, let's begin reading. We're going to read the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16. Let's set it up.
1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16. Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you?
Read it again.
Know ye not that ye are the temple of God?
Know ye not that ye are the temple of God? Come on.
And that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you?
And that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you. So we, the Israelites, the men of the Most High, and the women of the Most High, we are the children of the Most High, and the Spirit of God is resting upon us. Read it again.
Know ye not
Don't you know? Don't you Israelites know? Go ahead.
that ye are the temple of God?
That you are the temple of the Most High. You today, our minds. As a man thinketh in his mind, so is he. So the Lord is wanting to dwell in our temple so that we can be as the Most High have dedicated us to be. Read it one more time.
Know ye not that ye are the temple of God?
Know ye not that you are the temple of God?
And that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you?
And that the Spirit of God dwelleth in the Israelites. Okay, so that this is something that we need to be mindful of. If we recognize and accept the fact that God deals within us, that we are his temple, then that would dictate to us how to govern ourselves. That would dictate us how our conversation should be. That would dictate to us how our behavior should be towards each other, towards the men and women of our nation. And it should also dictate how we deal in this earth, how we deal with the other nations, how we deal everywhere. When people see us, they're supposed to see the ambassadors. They're supposed to see the temple and the light of God. That's what they're supposed to see. That's how important that verse is. So it's not something simple, although I'm just using one verse, but it's heavy. Know ye not that you are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? God dwells in you. So by us knowing that, there's a particular way that we're supposed to carry ourselves. But now, let's get back into the trauma. So how did we lose this? Because we broke the laws of God. We broke the laws of the Most High. We broke the commandments. We broke those things. And as we broke those things, the consequences came upon us because the commandments was given to us on a conditional basis. If we broke the commandments, we would suffer the curses and we would suffer the consequences of breaking those laws. If we would have kept those commandments and those laws, the Most High would have gave us the whole planet Earth like he still intends to do for us, only if we repent. If we don't repent, we can forget about it. Okay, so these are some of the things that we need to remember when we read this verse here, that the Spirit of God actually dwells within us. So there's a responsibility that is incumbent upon us as Israelites to act accordingly, to act and to know that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you. Okay, so now let's talk about the traumas. I'm going to revert back a little bit to what we talked about last week. I'm not actually going to go into it deeply because we covered a lot last week. We showed you the history of what happened even with Northern Kingdom, about how the Israelites was torn up in Santo Domingo, Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, all those areas was chopped up and torn up and hands cut off and all that stuff. So these are traumas that will last with us all the way up to today, as well as what happened to us on the slave ships and what happened to us in the cotton fields and on the plantations. These horrid, horrible reminders that will keep us in a depressed keep us in a degraded mental state. Okay, and that was the result of breaking God's laws. So let's go into that video. We're going to talk about the effects of the slavery and what actually happened in this condition of slavery. Let's play it. This right here is called The History of Racism in America. And we're going to play an excerpt from this clip. Now, I'm actually taking it out of the context of what the video was about, because I think he was talking about the Second Amendment. We're not interested in that particularly. But there was something that he said in this video that I want to illuminate to show you how devastating this trauma is. And I want you to ponder on what he says, because I'm going to help illuminate it by bringing it out. Okay, let's start. Let's back it up again. Let's get on our game, brothers. Let's get on our game. We don't want to. We want to get all of this right. Okay, hit it.
People get moved because of that. And talking to Pete before, he made the point, and he's right. It wasn't just cotton. It was cotton and tobacco.
So he's talking about the commodities. He's talking about the commodities, what made America rich. Okay, go ahead.
Two of the crops that made America rich. You won't be able to read this. It's just an ad from the 1830s about Negroes for sale. And what I'd like you just to understand is the language that's used. Because the following Negroes, Eddie, Melvie, Henry, Mary, Betsy, Jane, Lucy, Silas, and Melvin, a boy, are going to be sold from 9 to 3. Terms of the sale, 10% on the purchase, in cash, or money in cash, and the balance on credit. And so it just talks about this like a normal transaction, because the people alive at this time saw nothing wrong with buying and selling other human beings.
Now pause it. Go to Deuteronomy 28, 49. Deuteronomy 28, 49. Where he makes the point. He says the people that didn't, as if they changed. He said the people that was normal to them, okay, to treat us as property, because that's actually written in their constitution, to treat us as articles of property and to hold as slaves. Literally, it's written that way. So let's read that. This is the reason why we had this. This is what we're dealing with. This is the kind of people that have ruled over us in slavery. You got it?
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 49.
Read 48, then 48 and 49. Read.
Verse 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies.
Because we broke God's laws.
Which the Lord shall send against thee.
Which the Lord shall send against us. Go ahead.
In hunger.
In hunger, he sent these enemies against us.
And in thirst.
And in thirst, he sent these enemies against us. So our food and water had to come from our enemies. That's trauma in itself. The people that actually hate you, you have to depend on them for food and water. Go ahead.
And in nakedness.
And in nakedness, to clothe yourselves and your children and your women. You have to get that from your enemy. Just think about that. You can't even put clothes on your woman unless you go to the people that hate you in order to cover her beauty, to cover her body, to cover up your children, to cover yourselves up. Just think about that level of trauma. Go ahead.
And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck.
And he, this enemy, shall do what?
Shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck.
Shall put a yoke of iron upon our necks. Go ahead.
Until he have destroyed thee.
Until he has destroyed our minds. In other words, he have destroyed our temple. He destroyed our mental minds. He destroyed our thinking. He destroyed our process of common sense. He destroyed our process on how we love each other. How we deal with each other, how we speak to one another. All that's been destroyed. Go ahead.
And verse 49. Mm-hmm. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far.
The same enemy, come on.
From the end of the earth.
Meaning he's totally different from us. Go ahead.
As swift as the eagle flies.
And this enemy's emblem will be the eagle, meaning the so-called white man, Esau. Go ahead.
A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand.
Meaning his mode of speaking is totally foreign to us. What they call righteousness, they call wickedness. What they call a love group, so you can understand. A spiritual group, they call it a hate group, so you can get the understanding. They're totally adverse to what we are about. They're totally adverse to this nation of Israel. Go ahead.
A nation of fierce countenance.
A nation of fierce countenance. They are adverse to God, so you can understand. They're the Satan that the Bible speaks of. Read.
Which shall not regard the person of the old.
They shall not regard us. They shall not regard the old men when our men get too old to be productive in slavery. They gave him some poison and killed him because he's a liability if he's not producing for them. They said, might as well kill him. What we doing? What are we gonna do? Just feed him? No, if he ain't producing nothing, he's no use to us. Kill him. No regard for the old. Go ahead.
Nor show favor to the young.
No show favor to the young. There's instances where they rip the babies out of our mothers' wombs and smash them and crush them in front of all of the other pregnant mothers. Okay, no regard for our children at all. Go ahead.
And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle.
Everything that we would produce, he'd take it from us. Literally, everything. Because you have to go. We produce it, they take it from us, and then we have to go to the same people that took it for our survival. Food, water, and clothing, like we were talking about earlier. Go ahead.
And the fruit of thy land.
And the fruit of our land. Whatever we pick cotton, we pick peas, whatever. He took all of that. Whatever we put our hands to do, even today, whatever industries that we would, or businesses, or inventions, anything that we would put our hands to do, to use for our benefit, they take it. Go ahead.
Until thou be destroyed.
Until we be destroyed. Why does the Most High allow this to happen? It's because he wants us to return to him. That's the point. Okay, he wants us to recognize that he is the power. He said, if you don't turn to me, I will allow your enemies to wipe you off the globe. That's how far the Lord's anger is. So let us keep that in mind as we illuminate some of this trauma that we're going to bring out today. I hope everybody's with me. Is that it?
No, sir.
Okay, read on.
Which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil.
Meaning no substance at all. Okay, so the Most High is doing this to us because he wants us to recognize where the true power is. Okay, he wants us to return because we're the Israelites, and the reason why we're here is because we broke God's commandments. Okay, so the Lord is saying, listen, I need you to get yourselves right so I could give you what you actually deserve. If you try to get it any other way, I'm not going to allow it to prosper. Okay, so is that it?
Or increase of thy kind, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee.
Until he have destroyed us. That's it, right?
Yes, sir. Until
he have destroyed us. So that's the message that the Most High wants us to get. So let's play on in that video. Let's go back to the video. Let's play on in that.
Wrong with buying and selling other human beings. This is not the slavery that Bill O'Reilly talks about. This is not the slavery of, well, it was a bad thing, but it wasn't that bad. 1.5 million pounds of cotton a year by 1790. Can I see a show of hands? Anybody in this room who has ever held a ball of cotton in their hand without the twig, without the sticks on it?
Pay attention now.
So talk to the people who have done that.
Pause
because
it,
for the people...
Let's back up and get those words again, because I want them to focus on what this man is saying. Because I want y'all to really, again, I want to illuminate, like I said, I wanted to illuminate sections of this video. And this is one of the parts I wanted to highlight. Back it up to where you saw that blue, those writings, the words. Was that it? Yes. So it said in 1970, yearly cotton production from slave labor was 1.5 million pounds. I want you to understand that. 1.5 million pounds. Can you imagine the weight of that?
1 pound of cotton.
Yeah, exactly. That's what he's getting ready to. That's exactly what he's about to illuminate. So he said in 1790, I hope I didn't say 1970. In 1790, during slavery, yearly cotton production from slave labor, meaning no payment from slave labor, was 1.5 million pounds. So the cotton, all of the cotton that we picked within 1 year equaled 1.5, almost 1.5 million pounds. That's how much the cotton weighed. Now let's go back to the video. Let's get the brother. Just play it. Just play it.
Million pounds of cotton a year by 1790. Can I see a show of hands? Anybody in this room who has ever held a ball of cotton in their hand without the twig, without the sticks on it? So talk to the people who have done that, because for the people who have done it, you know how much a ball of cotton weighs. How many of those do you think you have to get before you get to 1.75 million pounds of the stuff?
Wow.
By 1840,
That's a lot of
cotton was
cotton.
virtually 60% of all U.S. exports.
Pause it.
The
So 60% of all United States export was cotton. So how rich did America get by exporting all of the exports, meaning the nations have to pay for the goods that was made in this country? Like I said before, many times I've said on this program and on all the programs that I've been on, I said a world economy was built off of the backs of slaves. This is the proof that I'm talking about here. And that's just talking about cotton, which cotton itself was 60% of the export. So you ain't even talking about the other 40%. You ain't even talking about the other commodities that we worked for, built, that also was exported, that made the earth plentiful rich, okay? And we have not been paid a dime. That's some trauma for us to know that. That's some trauma for us to realize that and for us to grasp that reality. That's a heavy weight. Plate.
And D, can I
Yes,
say
sir.
right
Yes,
quick?
sir. Yes,
Even you've seen a lot of slave movies, but they was required to pick at least 300 pounds of cotton before they come off that field. And
You hear
if they
that?
came off,
So that's
and
daily you're talking about.
Yes, that was daily, right?
Daily.
Yes, that was daily. And if they did not pick that, most time they would always be whipped. Okay, the trauma behind that. So
Wow.
that's I just had to bring that out.
Yes, sir.
You know,
Yeah, we
I've
need that. We
seen all
need that information. And think about it, because because people were trying to figure out, well, how come this cruelty was so deep upon us? When you talk about 60% of all of your export is cotton, and the world is busy paying you for it and buying it from you, that will drive the lash, so you can understand.
Right.
That will drive the whip. I need more of you to work harder and harder and harder because I need to meet this demand. That's what we were used for. This is a heavy deal.
And a lot of the corporations today benefit from that 59% of U.S. export. Okay, and a lot of our people can't go get a job there.
Right.
You know, they don't do nothing to help our people.
Wow. And think, just like what you're bringing out. And in addition to that, think about, like I was saying, that demand for that cotton was there. And once the man got too old, he's a liability. So that means to take care of a man that is too old to work in the field, that actually cuts into your profit. So when I said that they gave him poison, now you can see why they did it. They said, if you're not helping to fulfill this 60% cotton export, you are no use to me. So he's too old. He's sick. He's withered his hand. We beat him half to death. He's bleeding to death. He can't move his neck.
Right.
Because there was a lot of injuries that happened. Like when we talked about that burial ground in New York. There was the 9-year-old kid. They dug up the bones of a 9-year-old boy who had stress injuries.
Yes.
When they examined the bones and they examined the tissues and the joints and the ligaments, they found stress injuries on a 9-year-old kid from doing this kind of work. Now think about it. If the old man couldn't get the work done, and he already got his other 300 slaves doing something, he needed to get labor from somewhere else. So now he said, where that kid at? Work him to death. How? And you just think about it. So there's a gun trained on that child, a gun trained on that woman, trained on that boy, trained on that girl to help produce that number. Think about that. Trauma. So for us to know this and to accept this, it leaves a level of trauma on our brain for us to know that this is the reality that we came through.
And people don't realize how close this trauma was, because let me bring a little history right here in Concord, North Carolina, and Kannapolis, North Carolina. One of the big factories that was here that a lot of generation of black men and women worked at was Fieldcrest Cannon.
Wow.
Right here in Kannapolis and Concord. Another big commodity was the tobacco that he mentioned. Right. Okay, which was down there in Concord and Philip Morris.
Wow.
Okay.
See that?
So yes.
So there's your 80%, 90%, your 60%, 75%,
yes,
to 90%. There's those other areas.
Yes, sir.
Deacon.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
They
sir.
dug up the foundation of the Twin Towers. Underneath the Twin Towers when 9/11 happened, there's actually slave bones that they found underneath the Twin Towers in the foundation. You can look up. And the children there, because you said children,
Right.
some of them were toddlers.
Wow.
But that had, like you said, stress injuries. The
Right.
tendons had been pulled off right off their bone.
Right. Now, I actually had, because when I worked in New York, me and Asaph, we worked together, and there was a bulletin. He knows if he's watching. There was a bulletin that was up on the board before they tore the building down. They rebuilt another building in that site. So I asked for the article that was there. So I got the article at home somewhere, so I'm going to bring it out to you. And the name of the article is Only Forget Us, not something like that. Do Not Forget Us. Only Remember Us. That's what it was. It was, I think it was a Newsweek article, and it was a black man that held up a skull of a young boy of the slaves. He actually had a skull in his hand, and he was making a point about these are the burial remains of our people that was buried down there under these areas in this area in wall down there in Lower Manhattan. Okay. So Lord willing, I'm gonna bring that article in here and go through it. It's quite powerful, and it's talked about the stress injuries and all of that. So just wanted to mention that these things are actual reality. Again, traumas. Let's play on in the video.
Percent of all U.S. exports. The United States was getting rich on free labor. Maryland made it a crime to possess anti-slavery publications, 20 years in prison, just for having the publication. Oregon did it differently. They said slavery is illegal here. We're not going to have slavery.
So wait, whoa. Because when I heard this before, so just by them putting up any kind of leaflets that was trying to outlaw slavery, they gave people 20 years.
Against the law.
It's against, not only was it against the law, they severely punished them.
20 years.
20 years for just putting up a leaflet that said slavery is illegal. Just a leaflet. Wow. So forget about if they had camp. Like we do. When we have camp, they say it's illegal for us to teach the Bible. If you just mention that it said to have these people as slaves, they said, well, we're going to give you 20 years because you're messing up our 60%. You're messing up our flow.
And it said Maryland makes possession of anti-slavery publication by any black person a crime punishable by 20 years in prison.
So you couldn't even speak up for your rights, period. You couldn't even speak up to be free. If you spoke, that's what we was reading there. If you spoke up and said, you know what, slavery is a crime, you got 20 years in prison. Years. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying you got 20 years just for even speaking on it. And this saying black person.
Right.
So this is not going to the Edomites. This is going to us, So if you was free and you was speaking against stopping slavery, then you was going to prison for 20 years.
Right.
And taking your freedom.
Wow. That's heavy. Now you mentioned, because it did say black person, but I remember reading it in one of my books. It was a book, J. Rogers, and I remember reading a passage in there that a white woman, Edomite, got 2 years in prison for teaching a slave how to read.
Wow.
So I'm going to find that information and bring that in sometime too. Because the objective, again, is to keep us ignorant, to keep us traumatized, to keep us in a state of slavery so that the world can continue to prosper off of the free labor that was extracted from us. And all of this was because we broke the laws of the Most High. Let's keep that in mind. Okay, go on. Video.
Did it differently. They said slavery is illegal here. We're not going to have slavery. But if you're black and we find you in Oregon, we will either whip you or kill you. So that was their way of eliminating the problem. And of the first 12 presidents, only 2, John Adams and John Quincy Adams, didn't own other human beings.
So he said of the first 12, that's what I heard, right? The first 12 presidents, only 2 of them, quote unquote, didn't own slaves. But that doesn't mean they didn't prosper from them. That don't mean they didn't get the labor and the rest of it. They just didn't own them. Right. So don't fall asleep, brothers and sisters. Okay? But 10 of the first ones, they owned slaves.
It's the founding fathers.
The founding fathers. Check that out.
Slave masters.
Wow. Is there more on that? That was it on that? Okay. That was so we went to the time specified, right, in the video? All right, all praise to the Most High. So now, give me Psalms. We're going to move to this here in a little while. Give me the book of Psalms, chapter 79, verse 1 to 3. Again, I want to point out the psychology and trauma of seeing the destruction that Babylon and Edom did to the actual temple, and I want to transcend that psychology of trauma up to today, like I just brought out about the slavery. A lot of you brothers and sisters felt that as we were bringing that information out, because that's what the reality of the trauma do. And it leaves you in I guess, a rather vulnerable disposition, leave you spiritually loathing about why did these things happen to us. I understand that, but this is the medicine that we have to understand the sickness in order to look for the cure. And it's important for us to grasp the horrid feelings of these traumas, because it will better push us towards a solution. It will better push us to do what's necessary to get out of this. Y'all understand me? Okay, let's read Psalm 79, verse 1.
Psalms chapter 79, verse 1.
Now, we read this last week, so I'm going to go through it kind of quick, but I want to use this to illuminate where we're going in this lesson today. Come on.
O God, the heathen are come into thine inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
Thy holy temple have they defiled. They have laid Jerusalem on heaps.
So the purpose of them laying Jerusalem on heaps was for us to see the destruction, for the visual impact of seeing our cities, to seeing our temple, to see our nation decimated and destroyed, to see the impact on how it would affect us in the mind. Go ahead.
The dead bodies of thy servants have they given to be meat unto the fowls of the heavens.
So we saw our brothers and sisters, our mothers, sons and daughters laying out there in the sun after they were cut up, after their bodies were sliced, dead, big gash wounds, heads cut off, arms cut off, backs split open. We witnessed our bodies laying there, seeing that. That used to be my wife. That was my brother. That was my mother. Wow. Just imagine the trauma of seeing that, and imagine the devastation that will have on your mind. So these enemies, they know about what trauma does. That's the point. Read.
The flesh of thy saints unto the beasts of the earth.
Is that the third verse?
No, sir.
Read.
Verse 3. Their blood have they shed like water round about Jerusalem.
They shed the blood of our people like water around Jerusalem. That's how much killing they did, and just left our bodies there for us to see and for us to remember, and for us to pass that trauma down to the survivors that's left of us. Just imagine, and we will carry that traumatic poison through our veins, through our seed line, and it will be fed into your unborn children all the way up to the day. Even in the slave fields of what they did to us today, carried into us today. Trauma. That was it.
And there was none to bury them.
And there was none to bury our sons and daughters and mothers and fathers that was chopped up and left all over the ground. So the point of having that done to us was for us to see the destruction, for us to see the damage and the decimation of our people. And so that's what happened during the time when our temples was being destroyed. That was actually Babylon that came in and did it, and Edom was complicit in that destruction, as well as when Rome actually Greece and Rome came and did it again. Okay, and that was the physical temple because we had rebuilt it. Now they're working on us, on our temple mentally, with the traumas that we are constantly reminded of, and that's what we're going to talk about as we continue in this hour. And then in the second hour, Lord willing, I want to go into the solutions to help us get out of this. All right. So that was it on that. Now go to my pictures on the Willie Lynch. I'm going to show y'all something. We're going to come to the video. I ain't ready for the video yet. Go to the, right. Let's open that up because I want to talk about the bullwhip days. Now I went from the time period of the Maccabee, the destruction of our temple, and which was during the time when we got it back during the time of the Maccabees, hence the dedication of the temple, the cleansing of the temple, which was our physical temple. Now we're talking about our temple here mentally, okay, and that's the reason why I wanted Corinthians 3:16. Read that again, Corinthians 3:16. Let's just set it up again because now I want to talk about the mental temple that has been desecrated, and this is how they desecrated that.
1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16. Know ye not that ye are the temple of God?
So this is after the slave ships now we're talking about now, okay? After the slave ships, when we came over here, there were certain things that was done to us that brought about the trauma again, relived it, so to speak. Read it again.
Know ye not that ye are the temple of God?
Know you not that you Israelites that disobeyed me, that came over here on the slave ships, okay, and the rest of the Israelites that are scattered in Santo Domingo, scattered throughout Puerto Rico, Cuba, Panama, all the areas, because I'm going to show those videos too, okay? All of that was a result of what we did when we broke the Most High's commandments. Read it again.
Know ye not that ye are the temple of God?
Don't you know that you are the temple of God? Go ahead.
And that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you?
And he dwelleth within our minds. He dwelleth within our spirit. That's where your spirit dwells at, in your head. So that's the temple that the Most High is talking about. The temple is talking about your mind. That's the temple that needs to get cleaned up by the commandments of the Most High. That's the temple that needs to get cleansed, so you can understand. Cleansed of all of this trauma. Cleansed of all of this self-hatred. Cleansed of the disobedience that we have against God. All that has to be cleaned out of our minds to make us into the gods and the proper people of the Lord. Okay? That's what has to happen now. Okay? Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Read it again.
Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you?
And that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you Israelites. Dwelleth in you Israelites. Now, let's turn our attention to this here. The Willie Lynch letter and the making of a slave. The making of a slave is the actual language that spells out how do you take the people of God and make them into servants to produce 60% of this exporting cotton. So you can understand, how do we do this? So this is what they're going to illuminate in this book. Now, we've showed many excerpts from this book before, but every once in a while we need to bring it up because sometimes we forget, okay? Trauma causes us to forget. There's a thing in psychology that talks about how we repress pain and how we repress traumas because they're so destructive, it would actually curb you from any kind of sane living. Okay, I forget the actual term for it, but there's a defense mechanism in us that causes us to repress pain, that repress trauma. Okay, so these are the traumas that ride in our spirit. Okay, so let's read that.
The breaking process.
Yeah, come on, at the top, right there.
The breaking process of the African woman.
This is the Israelite woman. Go ahead. So they're talking about how to make us to be articles of production. Read.
Then take the female, run a series of tests.
So they already talked about the man. They talked about setting him on fire, ripping him apart with 2 horses and all of that. Right. So that's what they talked about in terms of destroying us as men. So now they're working on the female. I want to illuminate something out of this statement that we're about to read. Not the highlighted part so much, but it's a little before the highlighted piece. Read.
Then take the female, run a series of tests on her to see if she will submit to your desires willingly.
See if she will submit to your desires of slavery willingly.
Test her in every...
You got to think about that. What can you do to a person to make them to look at horrible treatment as desired, to make you accepted willingly? Just think about the level of destruction that you would have to do to terrorize them, right, to make them love it. Go ahead.
Test her in every way because she is the most important factor for good economics.
Good economics meaning 60% of the export in cotton, so you can understand. You were going to say something, Miguel.
I was basically saying, Deke, that you got to terrorize the people to get them to willingly submit to you like this, okay? Like that goes back to that script when we go into that Leviticus 26, when it said the Most High, they that hate you shall reign over you.
Right.
They sat back and thought about ways to torture us.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Let's tie him up and a rope on him on this end and put a rope on that end, and then make the horses tear him apart.
Right.
That
took some thinking. They had to think about that.
About how the ways they gonna terrorize us.
Right.
And the Bible said that they that hate you shall reign over you.
They
gonna come up. They gonna think they just toying with us.
Stuff you wouldn't even think about.
You wouldn't even think about.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And think about, since you mentioned that, I'm gonna get even more gross. Think about them taking one of the slaves that they called Derby. That I had to look that up. Called Derby, and he was used as punishment on those that did not want to accept the so-called slave masters' inhumane desires.
Right.
And what they would do, they would take that errant slave and called this Derby, this other slave, to defecate in his mouth.
Right.
And then the hole his mouth closed. And then it said, the rest of y'all, if y'all don't do what I need y'all to do, see my slave Derby here? I'm gonna make him defecate in your mouth.
Right. Gotta be
and seal your mouth shut.
Then seal his mouth shut.
Just think about that.
You gotta be profane. You know, who thinks of something that
But greed will make you do that.
Right.
Greed will make you think of such things as that. I've seen some levels of greed in Israel, not to jump off the subject, but I've seen some greed and some evil in Israel that was driven by the lust for money.
Right.
So I've seen. I know how far that thing can go because I've seen it.
The extent that they will go.
The extent. That's the point I make. The extent that people will go to.
Right.
Okay. So let's get on back with this here. Read.
If she shows any sign of resistance in submitting completely to your will, do not hesitate to use the bullwhip on her to extract the last bit of bitch out of her.
That's the part that I wanted. He said, do not hesitate to use the bullwhip to extract the last bit of bitch, meaning the last bit of resistance. In other words, they wanted total acceptance. If you even looked like you was upset, they used the bullwhip even more. They used to call it the bullwhip days in slavery. Okay, the bullwhip days. That's what this is talking about here. So that's the reason why I wanted to point that out. So I wanted to make the point. Read on beyond that. It says to
take care not to kill her, for in doing so you spoil good economics.
Because that's what the whole key was. In other words, that's another word where the scriptures say, for the love of money is the root of all evil. This is what they want to do. Of course, they just have a perpetual hatred against us, period.
Right.
But I'm talking about when it comes to us and we adopt the same kind of evil ways, it is because of the love of money will drive people to do some unimaginable things to each other just for that dollar. That's some crazy stuff there, brothers. Just keep that in mind. That's just a side note. Let me get back to my lesson. Just want to make that point. But it said that if she shows any sign of resistance in submitting completely to your will, do not hesitate to use the bullwhip on her and him, so you can understand, to extract the last bit of resistance. That's the word bitch is another word for resistance. They don't want any kind of resistance at all.
Right.
To extract the last bit of bitch out of her. And then they're saying the reason why is because we want to make sure that we take care not to kill her or him, for in doing so you spoil good economics. So their whole point was about economics, to get that cotton out there. So like I talked about before, if you weren't useful for bringing that cotton, you was killed and put out of life. So you can understand. All right. Okay. So we're moving on with that, brothers and sisters. Let's get to my first video. Now, get to the video that I wanted. What I'm going to talk about here is post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay. Joy Leary. I'm going to talk about her. This is her on the screen. I'm going to show you in a little bit. She talks. This is one of the first videos that I've seen of her. This one is not so much readily popping up in your algorithms on YouTube. You kind of have to search around for it. But Dr. Joy Leary, I remember her as Leary, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, Part 1. That's the name of this video here. And I want y'all to hear what she's going to illuminate out of this here, okay? We're going to play at the times indicated that I gave to the brothers in the booth. Let's roll.
So then I asked this question about slaves. And they said it was too long ago. I said, well, why was it too long ago to diagnose? Well, because post-traumatic stress disorder only occurs over a period of time for a person that has experienced a trauma.
So pause it. Let me just say this. So she's making a point that because there's been scholars and when I say scholars, Edomite scholars, and the world, they try to say, you black people ain't really went through nothing. You're not really traumatized, because if it is made to be known that we were traumatized, therefore some therapy has to come into play. So by them saying that we were not traumatized, they could get to ignore the fact that we need therapy, but yet give it to another people and say, oh, they're the victims of all kinds of atrocities. How could you even compare? Okay, but she's going to make the point, and it's obvious, she's going to make the point that we in fact did suffer a hell hellacious level of trauma. Go ahead.
Occurs for over a period of time for a person that has experienced a trauma. I said, okay. So let's look at what happens. What are the kinds of things that people begin to behave like? This is what they would behave like if you have post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, you all know in New York, because of 9/11. When 9/11 happened, the entire country was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder.
Pause it there. Pause it. This is what I wanted to illuminate here. You got people trying to say that we do not suffer from post-traumatic slave syndrome or post-traumatic stress disorder. In other words, the traumas of slavery has no effect on us. That's what they're trying to say. Oh, you're perfectly normal. You don't need any kind of therapy. You don't need any kind of help. You don't need any of that at all. You're perfectly fine. We did not really mess with you too bad. Okay? That, as we all know, that's absolutely crazy. The Most High knows that we are traumatized, and the Most High is going to give us the medicine, not you. So we're not necessarily looking for therapy from you, Esau. So I'm just wanted to make that point. But I do want to point out that our enemies do know what trauma is, because that's what we're about to show here. They do know what trauma is, and they know how trauma affects people. I want y'all to pay attention to this clip. Back it up just a little bit. Let's get that whole statement.
Yeah, 9/11.
Back it
When
up.
9/11
We missed it.
happened,
I want to get the words. I want to get the words. Pause it. I want to do it right. I want her to make the point about she's going to break down that America does understand about trauma, because she's going to make a point about 9/11. So when they're trying to act ignorant to say that we are not traumatized, that's a bunch of crock. That's what she's going to point out. All right, let's go.
Has experienced a trauma. I said, okay. So let's look at what happens. What are the kinds of things that people begin to behave like? This is what they would behave like if you have post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, you all know in New York, because of 9/11. When 9/11 happened, the entire country was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. But not everybody had post-traumatic stress disorder based on those buildings coming down. It was a tragic event, but not everybody was traumatized by that. Matter of fact, I would submit to you that there were folks traumatized long before that.
Meaning us black folks.
But there was
Go ahead.
something that happened when people saw those objects crumble. And what those objects represented to America, what they were a symbol of, the World Trade Center. It wasn't just the lives that were lost. It was the symbol of what it meant. And that was wrapped in the notion of power and control and stability, all of those things, greatness. So many people experience post-traumatic stress disorder. Some people can't get on airplanes today, and they were nowhere near New York. So I understand that people experience that. Now let's see how they behave when they have been traumatized.
I want y'all to compare that, because she made the point about the Twin Towers was torn down by the enemies, as they put in their publications. And she makes the point that when those buildings came down, their strength came down, their confidence came down. They were so depleted mentally. They were all distraught. People was in a mess. People that wasn't even in New York. They saw it on TV. They were jacked up because those towers represented their strength. I say that because that's exactly what happened to us going back to when our temples were destroyed. It's the same, that our temple represented our stability. Our temple represented our permanence, represented our mainstay, represented our strength, our image. When they tear down your images, when they tear down your strongholds, when they tear down your leaders, so you can understand.
Our servitude to God.
Exactly. When they tear all of that down, there's a level of trauma that falls upon the people who were looking up to it as their strength, as their power, as their symbol of unity, as their symbol of greatness. When that gets destroyed, that leaves the people in heaviness. That leaves the widows in heaviness, like when you read in the Maccabees, and the joy of myrrh was all gone. All that was torn up. Okay, that's the point that I'm bringing out here. So, do our enemies understand trauma? Yes, because when they experienced it during 9/11, they understood exactly, and everybody was getting treated. Oh, I'm talking about Edomites was getting treated for for post-traumatic slaves, for post-traumatic, like when the buildings went down, a lot of people was depleted. I could tell you personally because I worked in the field and I've seen policemen coming into where to get treatment, firemen, all of that. I worked with all these people, and I've seen the devastation on how their minds were rocked after 9/11, and that they needed to get all kinds of treatment and all of that.
They was ready to go to war.
They was exactly all kind of people was getting treatment because of that. People that was even in New York, they saw it on TV, was getting treatment. So don't tell me that our enemies don't understand the traumatic effect of what we've been talking about in slavery. Right. They understand it. They just don't give a damn. But God does. Right. Remember that.
They still say it today. Remember 9/11.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Talking about some never forget.
The World Trade Centers was representing their strength, right? And when they were turned into heaps of rubble, America was hurt and they had trauma. But we're not allowed to feel trauma when they laid Jerusalem and our temple, like it says in Psalm 79,
exactly.
as heaps.
Exactly. That's the exact connection there. I wanted to get that out, brothers and sisters. So that's the point that I wanted y'all to get. Okay, so like we were saying, and I know we're about to go into the break. So our enemies do understand trauma. They know about trauma. They understand that the destruction of our temple was vital. When they destroyed us, they knew that the destruction of our temple was vital and breaking our unity up, breaking our bands, breaking our cords. Taking our stronghold away from us. And once all that's been destroyed, we were ready to be molded into slaves. And that's what happened. And they molded our temple, our mental temple, to accept slavery and to want it and to relish it and to not even look for a way to get out of it. We bumping into each other trying to figure out how to get out of this thing, but none of us are being given, I'm talking about outside of this truth, none of us are really been given the solutions. But brothers and sisters, we're going to give you the solutions today. Okay? All praise to the Most High. So I know we're coming up on the break. I just want to read this and then I'll let the break come on in. Okay? So like I said, our enemies, they do understand about trauma. They understand the use of trauma. They understand that the destruction of our temple was vital in making us into perpetual slaves. But when those towers went down, they said, never forget. I've seen it. They had it on the back of telephone trucks, on cars, windows, all of that. Never forget. Never forget. Wanted, dead or alive. They were looking for, what's the name? Bin Laden and all that stuff. Make a slogan out of it. They would because they needed the reason why they did all of that was because they needed some kind of patchwork to their broken spirit. We need somebody that's going to stand up for us, that's going to mend what we saw, that's going to mend the destruction that we saw. And that's the reason why Bush got so popular. What was the other one? Giuliani, he was in New York at that time. Even Trump, when he came on, he said, I'm here to make the terrorists pay and all that. That was therapy to white folks. They understood the importance of saying we getting ready to make them pay for what they did. They understood that needed to be amended or reconciled. They understood that. But we don't get the chance to do that. We don't get the credit of allowing ourselves to self-medicate. They won't even allow us to self-medicate. We know you ain't gonna give us the medication. They won't even allow us. I say allow like they can really stop it. They can't stop this. God is gonna medicate the Israelites. But they don't even want us to even self-medicate.
Right. So in other words, they don't even want us to even get in the Bible.
Exactly. Right. That's exactly because the Bible has the solution to our people's problems. Let me say that again. Brothers and sisters, the Bible has the solution to our people's problems. So we're going to bring that solution to you. Like I said, but when those towers went down, they said, never forget. And we, as the Israelites, said along with them, never forget. Some of us were talking about let us go after Bin Laden, let us go. And meanwhile, you're suffering from trauma your daggone selves.
Right.
But we've been so traumatically affected in the years of trauma, the generations of trauma, we don't even recognize that our own minds need healing. We don't even recognize that, So like I said, as Israelites, we went along with them saying, never forget. But when it comes to us trying to deal with the problems that affect us and the trauma that affect us, your enemies label us a hate group.
Right.
Just think about that. All of this is the plot to keep us traumatized. They want us to remain in trauma. Okay. And they said, you need to hurry up and get over that. Why are you still talking about that old stuff? And we buy that. We buy that. But tell those people that watch those buildings come down, tell them to get over it. Right. You probably won't even get the words out of your mouth.
Right.
All right. So with that, brothers and sisters, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back after these words from our sponsors, as we would say, right? Shalom, brothers and sisters. We'll be back with you.
It's Toby, now say it! Toby! Damn you! Black liquor bastard. You will not move from here till you say your name. Not if night falls or a new day comes. Now you will say Toby. Say it. Say it! Say it! Say it!
And let us fight for our people and for the sanctuary. We're fighting for the hearts and minds of our people that do not yet know who they are. But we are their champions. We are their superheroes, so to speak. Believe that. We're serious. Ain't no laughter. We ain't got time for shucking and jiving. We got issues going on with the nation of Israel. Our young men are so starved for leaders. And the mother recognizes that we have no stars, that we have no leaders, that we have no superheroes. And because of that absence of an image, all kinds of psychological destruction has permeated the brains of our people.
To be honest with you, pay attention. Sons, help, God!
Yeah. Us against the world, Lord, what we deserve. War against our to the God and the captain of the host. The angels been sent for us. It's a war for your soul. Army of the living God. They see us in order. They see the formation.
Okay, brothers and sisters, we're back, and we're going to continue on with the video because, again, I want to point out about the post-traumatic stress disorder that our people suffer from, and to show you the effects of what the trauma does and how it affects us today. So we still have to talk a little bit about that before we get into the solution. So let us pick back up with the video, brothers. Let us continue on. Had a little bit more in this video from the sister Joy Leary, or the Joy the Group. Come on.
So I understand that people experience that. Now let's see how they behave when they have been traumatized. Intense psychological stress and distress at the exposure to internal or external cues that symbolize or resemble an aspect of the trauma or the traumatic event. So I would imagine that if people, were walking around and they were around tall buildings or they saw airplanes going over, that this would trigger. Are you following me?
So she's speaking about triggers and cues. That's what I want y'all to pay attention to. She's going to make the point about triggers and cues, meaning things that will remind you of traumas. This is what we get in this society, okay, to remind us and just to keep us in our place so you can understand. That's what I wanted to get into. Play on.
Over that this would trigger. Are you following me? Physiological reactivity to exposure to the external or internal event. So again, you'd have a physical response. Marked diminished interest or of participation in significant activities. This is a person no longer wants to do things. Feeling of detachment or estrangement from others. Restricted range of affect. Unable to have loving feelings.
These are hold it. You notice what she's saying. The kind of traumas that we went through actually brought on the behaviors that she's bringing up. Detachment, unable to love your brothers, unable to love. This is what she's bringing up. This is what this trauma of slavery did to us. So understand the effects of what's coming from your brothers and sisters. Go ahead.
Restricted range of affect, unable to have loving feelings. A sense of foreshortened future.
Hold it. A sense of foreshortened future, meaning that you cannot predict, you can't plan years ahead. And that's what makes you into perfect consumers, immediate gratifiers. Why in the world am I going to save money for 5 years when I can't even see nothing past 5 days? That's what trauma did, because we've been our lives were in their hands, and we've accepted that all the way down to the day. Our very lives depend on whether they say we can live or not. And we carry that spirit with us. So why am I going to plan for the future? Why am I going to plan, or what am I going to do when I get out of college? Hell, why even go to college? Why even do this? Why even do that? Because there's no assurance of my life. That's what the scriptures say. Thou shalt have no assurance of thy life. That's what that's what she's talking about there. Go ahead.
Feelings, a sense of foreshortened future, does not expect to have a career, marriage, children, or a normal lifespan. Difficulty falling or staying asleep. Irritability or outbursts of anger.
Stop. So you wonder why your kids are in school and they're calling quote unquote ADHD and hypertension and all that? Because these outrage, these outbursts, startle responses and all of that is a result of trauma. Go ahead.
Irritability or outbursts of anger. Difficulty concentrating. Hypervigilance. Exaggerated startle response. These are the behaviors of an individual that's been traumatized. These are the symptoms that they are living with. So they go to a doctor and they try to get us some medications. And if you're poor and don't know about that, you self-medicate. So this is what people do. And I'm going, okay, that makes sense to me. Now let's see. Let's look at the diagnostic features of post-traumatic stress disorder. These are what the most common trauma involved. And so once again, I said to my professors, but are you saying that slaves didn't have this? They said, Joy, that was too long ago.
Get over it.
I said, okay. So what I started to do like I asked my audiences to do, let's take a look at what these features are, and you and I will determine if maybe some of the slaves had it. Because, you know, they constantly tell us how happy we were during slavery. Even if you pick up any textbook in our schools, they'll show you happy slaves. Won't they? Nice little cabin, folks playing the banjo, happily eating pig entrails and watermelon.
You notice that she has to hold it. You notice that she has to give comic relief.
Yeah.
And the people laugh a little bit because she understands that if you just give it to them straight,
Yes.
their mind's gonna pop. So that's why she has to, and that's why we do it sometimes.
Yeah, we
some
do.
comic relief, because we understand how
Traumatic.
and traumatic just the bringing it up is. So we understand that. Go ahead.
Happily eating pig entrails and watermelon, grateful for the master. Isn't that what they show us? Because we need to see those pictures, because we need to remove the what? The cognitive dissonance. We need to believe that the way we treated you was just like, and you was happy about it too. That's why those pictures are there. So I'm going to give them that. All three of the slaves that were happy, and even the few that are still happy today. I'm going to give you them. So now, let's look at this and let's determine if in fact, and the thing about the DSM, because you know you need to be able to get the money, right? So if a person is diagnosed with dysthymia, which is, you know, kind of recurring depression, ongoing depression, chronic depression, you have, you know, you don't have to have all the features of depression, for example, to get that diagnosis. You only need a couple of them. Okay, maybe one you can get, you know. So I want you to bear in mind that you didn't have to have all of these to get the diagnosis. But I want you to tell me if you think outside of the three happy slaves, I want you to tell me if you think the rest of them might have experienced these. A serious threat to or a harm to one's life or physical integrity. They get that one. Threat or harm to one's children, spouse, or close relatives. Sudden destruction of one's home or community.
Pause it. I don't know if everybody's getting what she's saying. She's saying that the events that happen, she's actually bringing up events that happen. Back it up and get those numbers again. Back it up and get those numbers again that she's listening. Because I want y'all to make sure you understand what you're hearing. Play it.
To one's life or physical.
So a threat to.
You think
yeah, go ahead. You got it. Play it.
The rest of them might have experienced these. A serious threat to or a harm to one's life or physical integrity.
Stop. Did we go through that in slavery?
Yes,
the threat of our lives, physical harm and all that? We went through that. So that produced a level of trauma. Just that one alone. Go ahead. More.
They get that one. Threat or harm to one's children, spouse, or close relative.
They had that happen. That happened to us. The threat of our children being raped, taken away from us, cut up.
Right.
We just read it.
We just read it.
Right.
Exactly.
You got that.
That was in the Bible, but happened in slavery too.
Right.
You got that if you ain't pick enough cotton.
Exactly.
Right. No assurance for our life.
Exactly.
You know.
All of that. So we experienced that level of trauma. Go ahead.
Sudden destruction of one's home or community.
Stop. Sudden destruction of one's home or community. I'm going to get ready to bring it home now. When the Ku Klux Klan burned our houses down. I want you to pay attention to this level of trauma here. Burned our houses down. The man will have to wake up to his house on fire with his wife and kids there. He has to hurry up and get them out of bed and run before the house consumed them all.
You don't get more traumatized than that.
So he has to go outside in the night with his pajamas on or whatever, with his wife shaking and trembling, his kids crying, and then he watches the fire department come by and stand there with their hoses and not sprinkle water on. And they would do this. They would show up and wait, literally hold the fire hoses, hold all of that, and watch the man's house burn down with the family watching his house burn down. And then when the house is burnt completely down, then the fire department turn on the water to put out the fire to keep it from spreading throughout the field or whatever. But they wanted to make sure that the house was completely burned down. Just imagine as a man with your family and your kids, you out there in the cold with your family watching a terrorist act of the Ku Klux Klan people burning, throwing some igniting material into the window to catch a house on fire while you are asleep. You wake up to smoke. Oh, man, I got to get my babies. I got to get my this and that. And you go outside, and you're watching your house burn with the fire department standing there watching with you. Think about that level of trauma. Your property being burned. Think about that. So it's no mystery why we're so messed up today. I understand it. And I pray that my brothers and sisters can get their mind right and stop this evil towards each other. And we have to break that mold of this trauma. Okay? We have to do that. We have to work hard for that. And I'm going to talk about that too, Lord willing. I'm going to get it out in this lesson here. All right? Play on.
Deacon, can I say
Yes,
this right
sir.
quick
Yes, sir.
too?
Yes, sir.
And you speak about the trauma, and she was just mentioning about, you don't hear nobody celebrating slavery.
No.
You don't hear them talking about, oh, you remember the good old days?
Right.
Where's right? You don't hear nobody talking about it.
Right.
We wouldn't have known about it if this truth happened to come along
Right.
to know that this history was right there in the Bible. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Where's our 9/11 memorial?
Right.
Where's that
Exactly.
at? Go ahead. You said I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to get that in there.
There ain't no holidays we celebrate because of slavery or like they was having a good time out there, And she was bringing that to that point out, It was pure trauma that my own grandparents, I didn't know nothing about. They didn't talk to me about it. I didn't know nothing about it.
Exactly.
I found out about it.
And just, you just said something because that's exactly right. My own parents, my father was from Charleston, South Carolina. So he knows about it. And I know Charleston has a whole history of slavery down there.
Boy.
So, so when, of course I was, he moved to New York and all that.
Yes, sir.
And that's when I was born. But outside of that, he didn't really go into any of that history about what happened as he was coming up as a boy. Same thing with my mother. Same thing with all of us. They never wanted to really tell us the terrible atrocities that happened and talk about it. Because why? Because they thought that it might enrage us and it might get us in trouble where the man would say, wait a minute, who in the hell taught you these things? And they knew that we would be in some kind of danger. So they resisted from telling us facts out of fear that we might die.
And just because they didn't tell us about these traumas, but how they carried themselves, way it affected them, it still passed down to us and affected us. Then we caught on and realized, wait a minute, this is why this is like that. This is why Grandma and Papa was like that.
You bringing out something heavy. You're making the point that our parents, although they knew all of this, they kept it inside.
Yes.
They never got a chance to release it. They never got a chance to express it. And being that was the case, it caused a cancer in them.
Right.
And we wonder why they were bugging out. Because they could not, they knew they wanted to, but they knew they couldn't.
That's heavy.
And that's the reason why our people are tied up in church so much too. Because church is a sleeping pill, basically.
Wow.
It's a lullaby.
Yes.
That's the reason why they go to church. That's the reason why church is big business. Because our people go in there like it's alcohol.
Right.
It's a sedative.
Yes.
It gets them high to get the right. It gets them high. They high old Jesus and jumping up and down, knowing doggone well it's totally ineffective dealing with their own problems.
Exactly.
But they feel good about that, and it gives them a chance to take their mind off their problems. The same thing as dope. The same thing as alcohol. Same thing as it's the same drug. It's the same effect.
That's it.
The same effect.
That's it. That's exactly it.
And the preacher's the dope dealer. How about that?
And then they'll do the same things in the churches. They bring the same, the whoremongering, chasing women, chasing the men,
all of that.
Yes, trying to get some type of
fix, some type of relief from the pressure.
It's trauma.
It's trauma. All of that, even the promiscuous attitudes that we have, that we deal with each other with the abuse. When I say the abuse, the constantly sleeping around and not dealing with our women properly, not dealing with the daughters, the sons, nothing, leaving them be. All of that is a result of trauma, and we're just trying to just feel good to get the pain off of our mind.
Just like Officer Cos was sharing with us earlier, that he was in a place of concourse.
Check that out.
And you walk right by your brother, and you normally look up, hey, how you doing today? Just acknowledge each other, just out of respect, and courtesy.
Right.
And the man walked right by him, didn't even acknowledge him, But then later on, he sees him talking to the other man,
right?
of
Esau,
another nation.
Right, talking to Esau,
right?
with
and
ease.
hand gestures and
all
everything.
of that, right?
Man, that's what in the world going on here. You know,
that's the effect of slavery. Officer Cos, who's on the camera, he gave us this information during the break, so I'm glad that Captain brought it out, because I think y'all needed to hear that. Perhaps he'll illuminate on that one of these days when he's sitting behind one of these microphones. I got my eye on you. All right, so where we at? Play on in that thing.
Seeing another person injured, killed as a result of an accident or physical violence. Learning about a serious threat to a close friend, a relative kidnapped, tortured, or killed.
We saw all of that.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Stressor is experienced with intense fear, terror, and helplessness.
We are terrorized.
Disorder is considered to be more serious and will last longer when the stressor is of human design.
Stop. Go ahead. You got something? You looking for something?
We read that.
Right.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We read that.
Go ahead, bring it out. Bring it out.
Deuteronomy 28.
Let them know that the Bible's got it. Go ahead.
Okay. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 49. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young, and he shall eat the fruit of, say, when it goes down, right?
Right. Right.
That's what we read. Thou life shall hang in doubt before thee.
That's right.
Hey,
yeah.
Let me get the one in Leviticus.
Leviticus. Yeah, go ahead and get that. Go ahead and get that.
Yeah, because play that again. I want to hear what you said again.
Excuse me.
Can we play that part again? That last part.
Yeah. Get it.
Tortured or killed. Stressor is experienced with intense fear, terror, and helplessness. Disorder is considered to be more serious and will last longer when the stressor is of human design.
She said is of human design.
Right.
Go to Leviticus 26 and read 14, and we're going to jump down to 17.
Leviticus chapter 26, verse 14.
Matter of fact, jump to 17. Go to 17.
Verse 17. And I will set my face against you, and ye shall be slain before your enemies. They that hate you They that hate you shall reign over you.
So they got the power to do to you anything, any and everything they want to do. Okay, because they reigning over you. We are in their hands. Read that part again.
They that hate you shall reign over you.
They never had any love for you. Okay, so their only motive was to destroy you and to think of the ways. They designing ways to destroy you. They designing ways to torture you that's never been done to mankind. They was coming up with these things.
Y'all getting this, right? And just like we were pointing out earlier, like what the sister said, she said that the trauma is worse when it comes from a so-called human being. I wanted to illuminate that part. You could be like some of us that have been in car accidents. I got rear-ended, and for a while, for years. When I come to a stop sign, I would look in the rearview mirror to see how fast a car. But that happened because of that traumatic hit when I got hit in the rear in New York. So, and the trauma is amazing. I remember the date, the time, all that. To this day, I remember it because these are things that will stick with you.
Right. Okay.
But what's worse than an actual car accident, for an example, is when it's done by a person, when it's done by a human, because there's more to it when it comes from a standpoint of someone hating you. An accident is an accident, but an actual person doing the trauma to you lasts so much longer. That's the reason why rape, like when a man rapes a woman, that stays with her forever.
Right.
That never leaves.
Right.
Because she can think about the motive. She can think about the way he looked in his eyes and all of that.
Yes.
She sees the whole terror and all of that.
Right.
So that's a level of trauma that doesn't go away. So it's much worse than, let's say, a car accident or something like that, you know. And that's the reason why some people say, I want you to know that I'm doing it to you. I've actually seen situations like that. They didn't want it to be where they just robbed you or beat you up or whatever. They wanted you to know that it was them that did it, because that's going to have a worse effect on you traumatically. Go ahead.
How much more? You got some more of that, don't we?
Was that it on that? Yeah, go.
And will last longer when the stressor is of human design.
It will last longer when the stressor is of human design. That's the point that I was making.
You think they might have had it? Of course they did. And do you remember how I described exaggerated startle response, difficulty staying or falling asleep, outbursts of anger, exaggerated emotions is what we're talking about. A person that doesn't see a future for themselves. I want you to consider that person. And so everyone would agree that slaves had it.
Okay, so we got that. So there's no doubt about it that we suffered from trauma. Okay, so again, the trauma is riding on us. Okay, so we need to work on how to get over the trauma, and God has the medicine. Okay, my next video, let's talk about how, because she mentioned about triggers, and what was another word she used? She said triggers and things that will remind you of the traumas. Okay, cues. That was a word. Cues and triggers. So there are things that are shown to us at different times to remind us that we are still a slave. Like I said last week, the perfect example was when they did it. What was a brother name that put that thing up? What was his name? Recently, the football player, Deshaun Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yes.
That was a reminder of you niggas staying in your place.
Just like Nick Cannon.
They filleted and fried him all throughout. Right, Nick Cannon. They filleted and fried him all through the media. That was a cue. The media plays a part in this. That's the point I'm bringing up. The media plays a part in giving us cues to keep us in our place. And they trigger us to keep us, to remind us, do not get too uppity. Do not think about getting out of slavery. Do not think about getting over trauma. What? Y'all listening to them Israelites, we want to punish them.
Right.
Y'all want to listen to the men that's bringing that Bible out? We want to sully their leaders. We want to find Negroes to try to come up against the leaders to further traumatize you. Just imagine that. Where would our people be? And I know we're working on trying to heal our people with this Bible, but just think about how much all of the brothers and sisters that's following us now, all of you, I'm thinking about. Just imagine you not knowing what we're teaching you. Just imagine what your lives would be if this truth was not being extended to you. Where would you be at now? Where would I be? Because I asked myself that question many times. Where would I be had I not been introduced into this truth? What kind of man would I be? What kind of husband would I be? What kind of father would I be?
It's heavy.
So you have to think about the effort that's used to keep us from learning. That's the reason why they will vilify and destroy your leaders, destroy your temple, destroy anything that unifies you, because they want to keep us as a destroyed people. Go ahead.
And Deke, I know you got some more stuff to cover. I just sent a post, and you talking about trauma. You got that post I just sent to the group me? I want to pull that up, man. You speak of I titled the people of trauma. Okay, and it's from Al Jazeera.
Yeah, go ahead with it.
I wanted them to see that.
It's gonna be a part 3, so just let you brothers and sisters know already. It's gonna be a part 3. Okay, because it have to be, because I don't want to rush through it. I always make the mistake of trying to rush through it, but I gotta bring these points out. I hope you brothers and sisters are all right with that.
Deacon.
Yes, sir.
While they get that, can I read to them? Joy DeGruy said an exaggerated startle response.
Yes, please.
Can I read that in the Bible that God warned us?
And then we get what Captain is looking for.
Sure.
Where you at?
Leviticus chapter 26, verse 36. Joy DeGruy said that we would have a trauma symptom is exaggerated startle response, right? I'm going to read what the officer's going to read that God warned us that he would make us like that if we broke his commandments as a people.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 26, verse 36. And upon them that are left alive of you, I will send a faintness into their hearts.
So it say that are left of you, meaning they were killing us wholesale, which we've been seeing. Read.
In the lands of their enemies, and the sound of a shaking leaf shall chase them.
A shaking leaf, that's just a twig in the wind, but it's going to chase us. We're going to be afraid because all the trauma that we got coming at us 24/7, day and night, like I said, our life shall hang in doubt before us.
And they shall flee as fleeing from a sword, and they shall fall when none pursueth.
Because we're so used to being pursued. So we hear the shaking leaf behind us, we say, we got to get out of here.
Right. That's terror. That's a terrorized people. The complete terrorized people. Go ahead, Cap. You got it?
Yeah. Now this here, if you see, go back. Let's go back. Know their names.
Put that on the screen.
Black people killed by police in the U.S. This is trauma. This is from Al Jazeera. Okay, if many of y'all may not realize that Al Jazeera was a news production that puts out news all over, and even here in America. But they did away with Al Jazeera here in America. They cut the TV off and everything. They network off everything here in the USA.
You know, I didn't even realize that because I used to see Al Jazeera when I was in New York, and I haven't seen, not to say that it's in New York. I know it's all over.
Right.
I might have caught a little bit of it down here, and then all of a sudden it disappeared.
It disappeared.
Wow, I didn't even know that. I didn't even realize that.
That's what happened. They got rid of Al Jazeera because Al Jazeera, again, was showing too much truth, bringing out too much
that's some
of
heavy
the.
stuff.
Yeah, it's very heavy. But just right quick, and we're going to get right back to you, D. Let's just show some of these names here. Click on. There's Rashard Brooks at age 27. Okay. This is part of trauma. Fell asleep. Go back. No, take your time. I don't want to go too fast, but I'm not going to go through it all. I just want to show you just a little bit. Go back one more. Okay. It showed what he was doing. He fell asleep in his car, blocking the drive-through lane at a fast food restaurant.
Now, nobody asked the question why he fell asleep. Because he probably worked so daggone hard.
Probably worked hard.
You don't know what kind of stress. Who would fall exactly?
Right.
I'm trying to get over the trauma again.
Right.
All of these things are factors of trauma.
Exactly.
Not making an excuse for it, but I'm just making a point to show you that the trauma sends you into so many different paths.
Yes. But would it cause for his life to be
It shouldn't.
It shouldn't, exactly. So go to the next one. Okay. Daniel Prude, age 41. Okay. Go on. It says what he was doing. Okay. He had run he said he had run into the street, supposed to say into the street, naked while experiencing a mental health episode. That's where that comes from.
Mental health, right. Mental health. That's a whole nother subject, dealing with our people with mental health issues. I can't even talk about that in this level because it's too vast. But we're gonna come at you with it. You know, we're gonna get it. We're gonna deal with that.
Yes, keep clicking on George Floyd, age 46. Okay. It says he was allegedly tried to use allegedly tried to use a counterfeit $20 bill. Everybody remember George Floyd?
His life is worth $20.
Right. You know, knee on his neck. You know, remember the trauma. Okay, that was trauma. Go to the next one. Breonna Taylor, 26 years old. Okay, click on to the next one. What was she doing? Asleep in her home. Click on to the next one.
And she was an EMT doing service.
Yes,
saving white folks' lives and all of that.
Wow. Exactly.
An upstanding member of the community. And what they try to do, they try to sully her and try to say that she was connected with dope and all that other madness. Unreal.
You can't even be in your house. There again, trauma. Okay, I'll tell you. Jefferson, I might have pronounced it wrong. Okay. But go to the next one. I mean, there it is. She was what? At home. Okay. And y'all can go back and read this stuff later. Coming out of Miami, Florida. Okay. Go on to the next one.
Killing a lot of sisters.
Yeah. Ara Rosser, age 40. Click on. What was she doing?
At home.
She was at home. Okay. There it is right there. All right. Go on to the next one. Stephen Clark. Remember, he was in his grandma's backyard. Click on to the next one and see what it says. Standing in his grandmother's backyard. Okay. Also, they believe the Clark was holding a gun. Okay.
We had a cell phone.
Right. Had a cell phone. Click on to the next one. What's that say?
Botham Jean.
Botham Jean. What was he doing? Go ahead. Let's see what. Seated on his sofa at home, eating ice cream. Can't even eat a bowl of butter pecan ice cream now, can we? Man, that's traumatized.
Right.
You know, I'm sitting at home eating ice cream. I'm looking at the door. I'm traumatized. Go on to the next one. Philando Castile.
Right.
Yeah, we remember hearing about that. 32 years old, okay? Down in Falcon Heights in Minnesota. Pulled over for a traffic stop. Next one.
Got killed in front of his family.
Yes, exactly. Alton Sterling, okay? Go on, click on. Say he was selling CDs and DVDs. I remember that right outside the convenience store. Next one. We get to coming to an end. Michelle, what's that?
I can't see.
Sushins?
I think.
Okay. How old was she? 50 years old? Wow. Still young. Okay. At home. Next one. Freddie Gray. 25 years old. Okay. in a police van, somewhere where you should be protected or think you'd be protected, but you wasn't. Go on to the next one. Tanisha Fonville, 20 years old. What was she doing? At home. Go to the next one. Eric Garner, okay, allegedly selling loose cigarettes. That cost him his life, choked him out. I can't breathe. Everybody remember that, okay? Akil Gurley, go ahead, walking down the stairs in the building where he's lived. Next one, Gabriella Neverest. Click on. She was in a vehicle driving. Go ahead, next one. Tamir Rice, 12 years old. Remember, he was just playing with a toy gun in the park. Can't go to the park no more. Next one, Mike Brown, 18 years old, walking with his friend. We remember that. Next one, they got a song. They sing a song about Mike Brown, you know.
Tanisha Anderson.
Yeah, look, Tanisha Anderson, okay. Family called 911 for help because Tanisha, who was bipolar, okay.
Another psychological disorder.
All right, click on right there so you can see. These are just a few of the black Americans killed by police. There are many, many more. Okay, there's Al Jazeera. There again, I just want to.
Wow.
So, Dick.
And I didn't even, just like you said, I didn't realize that they had, I guess it just slipped my mind about Al Jazeera no longer being on American TV because American media is heavily suppressed, especially if people are trying to wake up. We understand that.
Yes, sir.
So now, again, I wanted to just reiterate about, so that was some good stuff you brought out there, Captain, by the way, you know, because we need to remember that there's a lot of triggers and things of trauma. Just the fact of seeing all of that puts us in a fearful state. Just the fact of that all your brothers that basically did nothing but just exist end up dead. Okay, that will just send a whole level of trauma and ill behavior that will be a result of seeing these things. That would be our actions towards each other.
Yes.
So it's no mystery why we bug out, you know, but I just know that we as men, we have to take the responsibility and fix ourselves by the Bible. So let us remember that. We have to adhere to the cure that's in this Bible to clean our people up. So we want to start getting into some of those things. So again, let me go back to about how these triggers and cues are affecting our people, okay? And so let me set it up again. I was talking about that they used Deshaun Jackson. What was the other brother name?
Nick Cannon.
Nick Cannon. They fried him in the media as a message to the rest of us to keep us from getting uppity, so to speak, okay? So it all plays into feed the trauma that is already laid upon us from generations of slavery. And the media plays a big part of this. Okay, let's go to my next video. Now, what we're going to talk about here, let's get it from the beginning. Don't let it, because all these words are important. You're actually getting ready to hear from a congressman, Jim Dermont. He was a Democrat of Washington. He's actually a psychiatrist and a member of Congress. Yes, hold it right there. A member of Congress. He's going to talk about the effects of being programmed by media. Watch this. Hit it.
Fear works.
Fear works.
Does work. Yes. You can make people do anything if they're afraid.
Turn it up.
And how do you make them afraid? Well, you make them afraid by creating an aura of endless threat. They played us like an organ. They raised the orange and then up to red, and then they dropped it back to orange. I mean, they gave these mixed messages which were crazy.
Now pause it, because I want to play that again. I want to play that again. Because what he's talking about is what happened to white folks. They did this to their own people. But I'm showing you that the same method has been used on us in much harsher ways than this.
Right.
During the 9/11, because, you know, like y'all know, I'm in New York and all this madness was going on. Orange alert, red alert, green. They never got down to blue and green. It always stayed not even yellow. It was orange and red. And that just kept people on edge all the time.
Wow.
My point is that the media fed that. And that's what he's talking about here. So don't get mad at me. This is your own white folks telling you how it works. Start it off again. Go. Hit it. He talks about fear. He said fear works.
Yes. You can make people do anything if they're afraid.
And how do you make them afraid?
Well, you make them afraid by creating an aura of endless threat. They played us like an organ. They raised the orange and then up to red, and then they dropped it back to orange. I mean, they gave these mixed message, which were crazy making.
The world has changed after September the 11th. It's changed because we're no longer safe. Fly and enjoy America's great destination spots.
We've entered what may very well prove to be the most dangerous security environment the world's known.
Take your families and enjoy life.
Terrorists are doing everything they can to gain even deadlier means of striking us.
Get down to Disney World in Florida.
It's like training a dog. You tell them sit down and you tell them to roll over at the same time. Dog doesn't know what to do. Well, the American people were being treated like that. It was really very, very skillfully and ugly in what they did.
We must stop the terror. I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive.
Now watch this drive.
They will continue.
You don't seem too concerned.
We traumatized and
Hey, that's enough of that video. But I want to make the point. That what he's showing you is if they're showing you on that level, you can imagine the tactics that they use to make us roll over and flip. That's the point. That's the point that I'm saying. So if they've gone that far to deal with their own people, imagine the tricks that they use to manipulate us and our actions.
Right.
That's what I wanted to say.
Now watch this drive.
Now then he said he telling you watch out for killers and this and that and the other. Now he's talking about go to Disney World and all of this. And then he said terrorists are coming to kill us and all this.
Right.
Go out and take your children to Disneyland. All that madness. Mixed signals. But at the same time you're being trained to do whatever they tell you to do. And that's what they've done to us on a much, much worse scale. Much worse scale. So now I'm going to play about how media actually gets down to how they affect triggers and cues on how they do things. Play this. We're just going to tell you about hold it. This right here is getting ready to show you. This is the part that I wanted to bring up. This man is going to point out, this is from the film called The Panama Deception. And when Bush went over there, I'm talking about the first Bush, the father. He went and bombed. He went after Noriega. And when they went over there, that's a hidden horror. A lot of people don't, well, maybe they know now because the documentaries are out there. But when they went there and destroyed those people over there, they needed to put it in the media that they were getting the bad man. And the media was right along with the establishment. So my point is the media works the same as the conquistadors, the same as the slave masters, the same as the colonialists. They are an inseparable part. Do not look at the media as if it's really without bias. The media is part of corporate America. That's what this man's about to point out. Play it.
Media was so cooperative with the government because the media are owned by the same interests that are being defended in Central America by that government policy. The media are not close to corporate America. They're not favorable to corporate America. They are corporate America. They're an integral part of corporate America.
Y'all heard that? So, these are some good films that y'all brothers and sisters can check out, but that's beside the point. But again, let me just make sense of the video that you just saw. The point that I was making about what the sister, I'm going back to Joy Leary now. Joy Leary was making a point that we are a traumatized people, and she was giving the effects of what the trauma has done. Then she makes the point about cues and triggers. The cues and triggers comes from media. That's the reason why I showed the 911 clip and all of that, the terror alert and all that, because the media is part of the agent that triggers us to keep us in our place. This man here in the Panama Deception, he showed you clearly that that's what that was about. Whose phone is that's ringing? Okay, please. He's making the point that I lost my point. He's making the point that the media works along with the establishment to keep us in our place. That's the point. All right. So that's the point there. All right. So let's go back to Joy Leary. I want to read this part. Then we got a little bit more time left. I want to get into some other things before we close up. Let's go to Joy Leary again. She's going to talk about another level of trauma that affected us, and we are constantly reminded of the trauma through our media. Okay, play that.
What I began to realize is that this has morphed into a kind of lie that the annals of history, past or future, will never have seen. This is the biggest lie that has ever been told, as though it never occurred. How could we forget them? Millions. And what was the trip like?
So she's going to talk about the Middle Passage.
Well, you know that some of the cargo ships, they wanted to pack as many in as they could. They overbooked, if you will. And they did that for one reason. They did it because they needed to ensure that a certain number would go to market.
Pause. Stop right there. Stop right there. Give me give me an image of the cross section of the slave ships. Give me the image. I didn't give it to you, so let's look for one. A cross image of the slave ships. I want you to delve into what she said. Cross images of the slave ship. Yeah. Let's see. All right. Let's get to one where it shows the whole ship. Not a book. Okay, yeah, here comes some there. All right, let's get this. Let's get some of these and blow them up. I want the one where it shows it from the top view. Yes, sir. Blow that up. The sister makes the point that the ship had to be overbooked. Let's zoom in. Good. Let's look at how crammed up these bodies were. Let's take our time. Get the image and let's zoom in on the image. I don't need nothing else. I just want to zoom in on the image. I want to particularly look at the front part of the boat. Okay. Can we get that? Yes. Yeah. Now move though. You had it. Now move over. Let's get the. Okay. Lord have mercy. Now we got buffering issues. Oh, Lordy. Okay. You see that thing there? Because this is going too crazy. I ain't got time for all this. See that where it says the book there, 42? No, move two more over. Let's just get the tip. Blow that up. Because that's the section that I needed. Even though with the words, I don't care. I just want to, that's what I want. Look at that. Look how they had to manipulate the bodies in order to get, even though that slave, that word is in there, you can see from the top part of it that the bottom was like that as well. Look at how they had to arrange our bodies to overbook the pack to get as many of our people on that boat, on those ships.
The analogy they used to say, they packed us in cans like sardines.
Sardines. That's what we're looking at there. They had, because just like she said, the cargo was going to spoil. We were cargo. It's going to spoil. So they wanted to at least make sure that X amount of us, a good amount of us, actually make it.
Oh, wow.
The statistics say that for every 2 slaves of our people, because we the Israelites, we're not slaves per se, but for every 2 that made it, 2 more went into the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. So 50%, so you can understand, 50% of the cargo is at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. And that's the reason why on one of our programs, I showed that there was a memorial, a mural made with our bodies up underneath the waters.
And there are people that don't believe that, but even scientists will tell you the migratory rates of great white sharks and the routes that they use altered during the 1600s.
Wow. That means they went out of their own place. Yeah. They were swimming in waters that they normally don't swim in because the food is so prevalent, meaning our bodies.
Right.
That's the level of trauma there, brothers and sisters. Just wow, that's something. That's something. Let's go back to the video. Was that it on that? Was there more? Let's go.
Because they needed to ensure that a certain number would go to market. It's like any other cargo you have. Some of it will spoil and perish. And so they had to figure that out. So they packed in, tons of people, rows of people, 18 inches apart, 18 inches surrounding them for sometimes months. 18 inches. Stay with me here. Stench-filled, rodents, feces is where they ate It's where they slept. It's where they wept. It's where they urinated. It's where they defecated. It's where they vomited. And it's where they gave birth and where they died. In 18 inches of space. How can we forget that? But y'all are free.
She broke them off.
Bro, I tell you, bro, that sister's heavy, man. You know, I hope she's still in the spirit. But anyway, that's some heavy stuff there. You know, so it's important for us to recognize these things. Now, let me just get me the book of Luke. Give me Luke chapter 21, 24. I'm going to touch a little bit of what I'm going to talk about on the next program as we move into the solutions. Because as you can see, we are definitely a traumatized people, and the trauma was designed, all of that ugliness that we just experienced was designed to ride on our minds, ride on our spirit, to cause us to be a totally upside down people. Okay? But God says, God said, what you have, give me that. Give me Isaiah 29. That's what I need. Isaiah 29. Let's talk a little bit of solution, just a little bit. Isaiah 29, verse 15, I think it is.
Isaiah chapter 29, verse 15. Woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from the Lord.
The Most High said, woe be unto our enemies, because that's what it's talking about. Our enemies that took us captive. They said, woe be unto them. Destruction, God going to destroy our enemies for what they did to us. But we have a responsibility to get ourselves right with the Lord. What good is it to be all happy about what the Lord going to do to Esau if we going to die with him because of our disobedience? That's something that I want you black and you Israelites that's on this set. I want you to pay attention to that. Don't be so quick to rejoice about what the Lord going to do to them, because if you don't get yourself straight, you're going to die along with him. And I can't think of nothing that's worse than that. How in the world are we going to go through all of this trauma, all of this evil, all of this destruction, and then end up dying with him? How in the world is that going to even make any kind of sense? Read.
And their works are in the dark.
Read it again.
Woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from the Lord.
Go ahead.
And their works are in the dark. And they say, who seeth us?
They don't think that the Most High sees them. We're reading about it. Go ahead.
And who knoweth us?
And who knoweth us? Who's going to figure out that the people that we destroyed are the children of Israel? They ain't nobody. They try to hide it, try to call us a hate, try to get rid of all this information to keep our people from finding out. Like we was reading in the first part of our series, that 144,000 is going to be woken up, and the 1/3 of Israel that's going to repent. Or they're going to be woken up. So it is written, so shall it be done. Read it again.
Woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from the Lord.
They hide it in their dictionaries. They hide it in their school books. They hide it all over the place. Negro go through all kinds of schooling, college and everything, and still don't find out that he's the Israelite that the Bible's talking about. Our people don't find this out because they've hid it so well. They hid it in plain sight. That's how confident they are. Right. They show us cues in movies just to test our intelligence. That's something else that I want to talk about on another program. They actually test to see if we're woke enough. They put certain movies out with certain cues in it. And we used to go to the movies with brothers and sisters back in the day. And sit in the movie theaters and watch the movies with them. And our people don't know what the hell they're looking at on the screen, and we be like, why in the world they don't see this?
Right.
Because if too many of them understood what these movies was talking about, they say, you know what, we need to tweak our school books to make them a little dumber. Turn this to make them a little this. Turn them and make a little that. They monitor our response to movies, so you can understand. They monitor our response to music videos and TV shows and all that. That is not for your entertainment. They use that to monitor your progress in intelligence in terms of knowing what the Most High is talking about. That's what they're doing. And depending on how you act as a result, then they know how to tweak their information, their disinformation.
So that's why, they trying to take slavery out of school.
Exactly.
Right now.
Because too many people waking up.
So they see what the awakening.
Exactly. That's a perfect example.
And just right quick, where it says in Psalms 83, where it says, they have said, come, let us cut them off for being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. They did that.
Exactly.
And still doing that.
And they still doing it.
Yes,
just
sir.
like you said, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Like I said, they test us.
Yes.
They test us. They test our response. They test us with these dumb TV shows, with these movies and all that. The Matrix and all that, even though a sister made it, they put it in because If we put too much information out, they'll let us produce it and all that.
Right.
But then they say, okay, let the sister put out. Let's see if people gonna respond a particular way. And if too many people respond in the way that they don't prefer, then they say, okay, let's put some more dumb TV programs. Right. The Bachelor, this, the Housewives, that.
Yes.
Dumb, stupid rap music that's about selling dope or promiscuous twerking and all that madness to put you back to sleep.
Show them some gay stuff.
Exactly. All of that stuff is mind manipulation, and the media is their arms that help get this thing done. Read
verse 16. Surely your turning of things upside down.
You turned the Israelites upside down. That's what it's talking about. You turned us into a monster. That's what they did in the society. We're the gods of this earth. The princes and the princesses of God on this earth. Look how we're acting. Look how we behave. And they're proud of that. They said, look at what we did to God's people. Surely we are the powers. That's how they feel. So they don't want to lose that. Read that again. Read 15 and 16.
Verse 15, woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from the Lord, and their works are in the dark.
They think their works are in the dark. Come on.
And they say, who seeth us?
They say, who seeth us? Go ahead.
And who knoweth us?
Who knows what we're doing?
Surely your turning of things upside down.
God says, listen, surely your turning of my people upside down. You got them unrecognizable. That's what it says in Jeremiah. The Lord said, I have planted thee a noble vine. Give me that, Yigel. I planted thee a noble vine, but what has happened, even though we did this to ourselves back there during the time of Jeremiah, but it's even further crazy now by the aid of our enemies. But all of this is because we ourselves broke the covenant that God had with us.
Did you want the one Isaiah 5D?
No, I want the one in Jeremiah.
Oh, Jeremiah.
I have
2 and 21.
Yeah, that's it. 2 and 21. Give me that.
The book of Jeremiah, chapter 2, verse 21. Yet I had planted thee a noble vine.
God made us noble. Nobility. Do noble people hate each other? Do noble people shoot each other? Do noble people rape each other?
No.
Do we rob each other? Do we steal from each other? Noble people don't do that. We act like a bunch of wild beasts. Read that again.
Yet I had planted thee a noble vine.
God said, I have planted thee. You are my temple. You are my temple. I planted you a noble people. The hell is this? Go ahead.
Holy, a right seed.
You are holy. You are a right seed that I made with you. Go ahead.
How then art thou turned into the degenerate plant?
How then? How you turned into a damn degenerate plant? You ain't noble at all. You stink in my nostrils, as God said. A degenerate plant. Go ahead.
How then art thou turned into the degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me?
And we are strange to the Most High. We are strange to the Most High. Yes, Esau did it, but Esau did it by the hand of God because of our disobedience. How then have we become unrecognizable? I read about the greatness of our people, then I look out here in society and see a bunch of damn beasts. Read. Go back to that Isaiah, what we was reading.
Isaiah chapter 29, verse 16. Surely your turning of things upside down.
So the Most High, he's got the cards. He says, although I used you to do this to Israel, I'm gonna bring them out of that. But only if we repent. Finish reading that.
Surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as the potter's clay.
The Most High says, surely the way we were turned into a degenerate plant, the Most High is going to fix us up. The Most High says, surely what? Read that statement.
Surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed.
Be esteemed. The Most High going to take the same clay and he's going to mold us into the gods. He's going to mold our women as those palaces that you read about. He's going to mold this nation back to the beauty. But that's conditionally. If we repent, we must repent. We must repent. That's the point. Okay? So, one more scripture. Give me Luke 21, 24 and 25 real quick.
Luke chapter 21, verse 24. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword.
The Israelites shall fall by the edge of the sword, meaning during the time of 70 AD, we were destroyed. God sent the enemies against us. Read.
And shall be led away captives into all nations.
And the Israelites was led into slavery into all nations, all 12 tribes. We all catching hell. Go ahead.
And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles.
And Jerusalem shall be trodden down by people that are not the Israelites. That's who's in Jerusalem now. The scriptures say a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod, meaning that they're not the people of God. You're the Israelites. You Israelites, you're the people of God, and you're not in your land as rulers, so you can understand. Read.
Until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
Until their time is up. So when their time is up, that's when the Most High going to start bringing the destruction to them, and he's going to start giving us the spirit of repentance, the ones of us that will adhere to it. Read on.
And there shall be signs in the sun.
Read.
And in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations.
So the Most High said when their times is fulfilled, like the bottom of 24 said, the Most High said he's going to start bringing destruction. That's what that's saying. Read the bottom of 24 and read down.
Until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
So that's how long the nations are going to be occupying our land, and that's how long we are going to be without us properly occupying it, because we are still in captivity. But when their time is up, the Most High said this, read.
And there shall be signs in the sun.
Go ahead.
And in the moon, and in the stars.
Go ahead.
And upon the earth, distress of nations.
The Most High going to start to distress these nations. That's the reason why they're cutting out Al Jazeera. That's the reason why they're cutting out this truth. They don't want this truth to get out. That's the reason why he's fooling certain of our own people to be against this truth. All of that is a part of their plan to stop this truth from coming. But the Most High is bringing it out anyway. Read.
With perplexity.
With perplexity. He's going to cause the nations to be perplexed and trying to find out how to stop Israel. My movies ain't working. My preachers ain't working. My churches ain't working. My Negro preachers ain't keeping sleep on the people no more. They all waking up. Perplexed. Read.
The sea and the water and the waves roaring.
Go ahead.
Men's hearts failing them for fear.
Because the Israelites are waking up. The Israelites are back.
That's right.
Read.
And for looking after those things which are coming on the earth.
Which are coming on earth. The black Jesus with his big black feet.
That's right.
Coming to kick ass.
That's right.
Read.
For the powers of heaven shall be shaken.
For the powers of this government shall be shaken. That's what it's talking about. The heavens, meaning all of the rulerships going to be shaken with destruction. Read.
And then shall they see the Son of Man.
And then shall we see the big black Christ coming with vengeance. And he say, bringing that army. Yeah. Come on.
In a cloud with power and great glory.
With power and great glory, he's coming back to save the ones of us that repent. All 12 tribes. You so-called Native American Indians, you Puerto Ricans, you Dominicans, you Mexicans, Panamanians, the Negroes, West Indian, Haitian, Puerto Ricans, all of you. You got the chance to repent, the 12 tribes of Israel. You know who you are. Stop the BS. Get yourselves together. Read.
And when these things begin to come to pass.
And when these things begin to come to pass, listen.
Then look up.
Then look up.
And lift up your heads.
And lift up your heads. You ain't got to be worrying about the trauma. The Most High getting ready to get rid of all of that. Lift up your heads. Come on.
For your redemption draweth nigh.
That's the therapy that we need. We don't need to lay on somebody's couch. The Most High said that's when you're going to get your proper therapy then. Read that statement again.
Lift up your heads.
Lift up your heads.
For your redemption draweth nigh.
Because your Savior, your redemption draweth nigh. Come on. That's it. So remember that, brothers and sisters. We're going to stop it there. Next week, we're going to go even further into this, but I wanted to give you a little bit of hope to let you know that this trauma is not forever. Brothers and sisters, we got great days coming. I don't give a damn what the nations try to do. It's written, you're going to be saved. Those of you that repent and keep the commandments of the Most High, the kingdom is for you.
Bring it out, Deacon.
Go ahead, Captain.
Brothers and sisters, we thank you again. Happy Sabbath to you. Listen, don't neglect to give your alms. For those who would you like to give alms, fill out an envelope in your local assembly and put it in the alms box. To give alms online, donate to IUIC Concord. Okay, you can do that via PayPal at iuic.concord.nc@israelunite.org. And also donate to the Booster Club via PayPal at iuic.fundraising@israelunite.org. And we thank you for your donations and your support. All right, Deke?
All praise to the Most High. So, brothers and sisters, as we are enjoying our Sabbath, and again, I have to say it is from sundown to sundown. Sundown Friday to sundown Saturday is the Lord's Sabbath, okay? And that's what we keep, and that's what we teach, okay? So let us remember that, and let us keep the commandments of the Lord. Brothers and sisters, we say shalom to you. Most High in Christ bless you and your families. Stay in the spirit.
Shalom, Israel.
Shalom.
Most High in Christ
Shalom, Israel. Most High in Christ bless.
Happy Sabbath.
Happy